All right, so in this video, we're going to go over things that you'll need to be able to do in general chemistry labs, so Chem 3 and Chem 4. In here, I've entered some data that I made up regarding the density of, say, an unknown metal. So I have a column of masses and a column of volumes. For data entry in Excel, you just start typing in a cell, and then when you finish typing, you just hit enter, and then it goes down a column. So for example, say I want to enter 9, I'll hit enter 8, 7, 6, so on and so forth. If you want to enter data across, so horizontally, so across the row, you hit tab, so 9, tab 8, 7, 6, so on and so forth. In Excel, try not to mix numbers and letters. So you'll notice in my first two columns over here, the words are oriented on the left side of the cell and numbers are on the right. There's a tendency to type in units with numbers. Excel doesn't like that if you do that. So for example, if I had 1.738 G for grams, it snaps that now to the left side of the cell, indicating that Excel perceives that as being a word, not a number. Right? So for units and labeling in Excel, you can do something similar to what I've done here, where I just have mass at the top of my column with units in parentheses afterwards, and same with the volume. Right? To point out how to format these cells, so you'll notice that this one's fine, the mass is in the space, but the volume here is sort of encroaching onto the next one. And if I type something here, you'll notice that my thing is no longer overlapping, rather it's buried underneath. So to fix that, you can adjust and slide the columns and rows. So you can make these wider if you wanted to, which I'm going to undo because that looks weird, but I can hold, like, you'll notice if I go between the B and C here, it turns into a little slidey arrow left and right. So I can make this column as wide as I want or as narrow as I want. Or if you just double click while your cursor is like that, it will snap the cell to the size that's appropriate for the text that's in it. Right. All right. So that's sort of data entry and formatting cells and whatnot. How to actually calculate things. So say we wanted to find the density of this unknown. So we could make another column that's the density in grams per milliliter. To calculate stuff in Excel, you type equals and then start typing numbers as if you're writing an equation, or you can click the cell you want to do a calculation with. So I'm typing equals, clicking this cell, divided by this cell. Right? So dividing is a forward slash, multiplying is an asterisk, right? So like that. So say I wanted to multiply this whole thing by 2, I would do that. I would not type an X. If I type an X, I'm going to get a error message. Excel interprets X as a letter, not a multiplication symbol. So that's how you do multiplication and division. Addition and subtraction is just a plus and minus sign. So anyway, we can calculate the density for the first data point, dividing the mass by the volume. So cell A2 by B2. And you notice when I click from cell to cell, it up here in this formula bar displays what is sort of the inner workings. So here I've calculated the density, but it's telling me, okay, well, it's cell A2 and B2. And if I click those up here, you'll notice it actually displays in color that corresponds in the actual spreadsheet. So that's kind of a nice little thing. But anyway, we could come in and we could say, okay, we'll divide that number by that number again, right? Hit enter. Or we could just copy this for the entire column, right? So there's two ways. You can either copy it, select where you click and drag to select where you want, and then paste it. Or what I more often do is, you'll notice this sort of white thick plus mark when I go into the corner turns into a narrow black one. If I click and hold and drag, it will copy whatever is in that cell for as long as I go. So I'm just going to go a few more just to show you, right? And so I've copied this, and as we go down the column, we'll reference the next row down. So A3, B3, the next one is A4, B4, so on and so forth, right? Until we get to this one where it's giving me a warning sign where I can't divide by 0. So it's trying to divide this cell A8 by B8, right? There's nothing in cell B8, so Excel interprets that as 0, and so we can't divide by 0. So Excel will give you frequent little warnings if something's weird in a cell. It'll usually have a little green flag triangle in the corner to just warn you, hey, something weird's going on here. Right. And again, formatting the rows and the columns, right? My density is now creeping over into this next one. So I can come up here and again, double click to just make it the right size for the data that's in here. We can also calculate other functions that are pre-programmed in Excel. So for example, if we wanted to say, calculate the average of all of these densities, right? I'm again going to come up here and just double click to snap this row to the right size. So I can type and just start spelling the word. So AV, hey, look, average. So I typed equals AV and this little submenu comes up. I'm going to double click average. And then it's going to prompt me, okay, well, what numbers do you want to take an average of? Well, I'll just click and hold and drag through those and then hit enter. Right? So it's now taking an average of all of those data points there. Right? And there's a lot of these in Excel. We can also do sample standard deviation to get an idea of what the sort of spread in our data is. So again, double click. I'll do that again really quick. So equals, start spelling, double click the function you want, and then click and drag through the numbers you want to apply that to. Right. All right, so that's data entry, how to create your own formulas, some precursor, pre-program function use as well. The other things that you'll need to be able to do are graphs, specifically scatter plots for this course. So depending on what version of Excel you have, the Mac and the PC versions look a little bit different from one another, but up here somewhere, there is some way to put in a graph or a chart. For me, it's under Insert, and then you'll notice over here, there's Charts. I believe on some versions of Mac up here, one of the tabs is just Charts. But anyway, look through your version of Excel. Somewhere up here in this toolbar, there's options to do almost everything you'd want to do. Speaking of which, say there was a data point in here that I particularly wanted, you can format the color of the text in these cells. You can fill them with different colors, all that sort of stuff, but just kind of play around with it, get used to where things are in your specific version. But for me, I'm going to go to Insert and go to Charts, and I want to generate a scatter. Okay, I did not have anything selected when I went to do this, so Excel is just throwing data into the graph, hoping it's what I want it to be, and it's not. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to select what I want to graph, right? So we could construct a graph to show density. So I'll want mass and volume. So I'll select those, right? Then go to Insert, Charts, ta-da, right? So in this graph is this mass and volume data. It's already given me a chart title. I'm going to just call this density of an unknown metal. And then none of my axes are labeled, so I'm going to want to come in here and add that. So you'll notice when I click the actual graph, when you make a graph, your toolbar up top changes, right? So when I unclick it, I'm back to the regular one, but when I click the graph, up here are things like I can change the color of the graph if I wanted to or whatnot, but I want to add chart elements. So I want labels on my X and Y axis. So this is mass in grams. This one's going to be volume in milliliters. All right. We will also want to add a trend line to this. The idea here is you should have a straight line. As you increase the mass, the volume should increase directly to create a straight line. So we can add a linear trend line to this. And the slope of that line should be our density, right? Rise over run, the slope, the change in Y over X is slope. So if we have mass on the y-axis, volume on the x, that slope of that line should be our density. So let's do that. I can come here to an add chart element, and you'll notice there's a bunch of stuff in here, but I'm going to add a linear trend line. What I'm actually going to do is scroll down a little bit further and go to more trend line options. And this should pop a little window over here on the right, which it did. And if I scroll down here, I can get the equation for that line as well as an R squared value. Right. So I just kind of show you how to do that again. I'll show you a different way to do it. The way that I normally do it is I click a data point on my graph, and then I right click it. And one of the options is always add trend line. That will pop that little window over here. And if I scroll down, I can get the equation and the R squared value again, right? Okay. Something's wrong. The slope of my line should be the density, and I know my average density is around 1.73. Here it's 0.57. So I have my axis flipped. My mass is on my x value on my x-axis, and my volume is on my y. There's multiple ways of knowing this. One, check the average, but you can hover over individual data points in Excel, and it should be able to tell you what those data points are. If Excel will be nice to me. They're all too close to my trend line, so it's telling me that that's the trend line. So I'm going to delete the trend line really quick. And if I hover over one of these points, all right, so series point 27.807. So that's an X value, comma 16.04 is the Y, right? So that corresponds to this. The default in Excel is that the leftmost column are X values and columns to the right of it are Ys, right? So the purple over here are X and the blue are Ys. There's a couple of ways to fix this. One is you can quite literally flip them. So I'm going to get rid of this graph. I'll move this graph out of the way for a moment. Right. I could come over and copy these and place them so that volume is on the left and mass is on the right. Right. And now I can go to insert, scatter, and now you'll see, oh, well, the purple is the X, that's my volume, right? That's one way to do it. I've already created this graph and I've added labels and whatnot, so I don't want to redo it. So what I'm going to do personally, I prefer to do it this way, especially since I've already made the graph. I'll right click. Whoops, sorry. When you have the graph selected, you can right click the graph somewhere in the blank space. Don't right click that or the data. I want to add a trend line back to this. I accidentally deleted it. So adding a trend line, but right click somewhere in the graph. And one of the options should be select data, right? And here is my data. It's series 1. It's the only one on the graph. It's the only set of data on the graph. So I'm going to edit it and come in here and it says series X values and Y values. I'm going to get rid of what's in there and I'm going to select what should be the X, which is the volumes. And you'll notice when I did that, the slope here is changing. So I'm gonna undo it really quick. Well, no, I'm not. But if I come in here and delete out the Ys and select what the Y values should be, which are my masses, you should see the slope on the graph change, which it did. So I'll click OK. And click OK again to get out of that little sub menu. So yeah, that's now our slope. That should be our slope. It should be close to 1.3 or 1.73, which it is. So yeah, I did it right this time. So yeah, that's how to sort of create graphs in Excel. Again, when you come and click on the graph, you can come up here to design, add all sorts of elements, legends, titles, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, the only other thing that we'll have to do for Chem 3 and Chem 4 are potentially add or do linear regression analysis on our data sets. So how to do that, there are instructions on the Word document regarding how to activate the data analysis tool pack. It is different if you're on a Mac or a PC, but follow those instructions and you should have the tool pack activated, right? So once you've done it, if you go to data, you should have something kind of over here-ish on the right side that says data analysis. And if you click that, there's a bunch of sort of statistical tools in here. The one that you'll use in this class is regression. They're alphabetical. So if you just scroll down to R, hey, look, there's regression, and click OK, it's going to prompt you for stuff about a graph. So again, input my Y values. That's my masses. Input my X values. That's my volumes. Click and drag through those. And then you don't really need to worry about the rest of the stuff for this course. If you hit OK, it will propagate the data in a new sheet, right? So everything comes in clumped. So if we select all of this stuff, which it was selected, but I just off-clicked it, and again, we come up to the top and you double-click between any of these columns, it will snap them. Sorry, if you click and drag and you double-click, it should snap them all to the right size, right, to fit all of the text. Right? So this is what Excel has done is something called least squares regression. You can look it up if you want to, a little bit of stats. But what we will pull out of it are basically these boxes, which I'm going to highlight in yellow and green. Sure. All right. So what are these numbers? If we look back at the sheet, 1.7388, 1.73875. So this is the slope, right? And the 0.00164 that's above it, 0.0016, that is your y-intercept, where the line crosses the x equals 0 on your graph, right? The numbers to the right of them are the standard error, the sort of uncertainty in each of those numbers. So your slope is 1.738 plus or minus 0.002, right? And then the intercept error is to the right of that. So that's basically it. You'll need to be able to enter data in Excel. Remember to not mix letters and numbers together. Same thing with calculating your own equations. Equals, then start calculating what you want to calculate, or use pre-programmed ones like averages, right? And then to construct your own graphs, you somewhere in this toolbar have a way to insert charts, and then add trend lines to them. My sort of one thing in Excel that works in every version of Excel, no matter what, at least so far, is if you want to change something, like something goes wrong, click it, right-click it, and somewhere in this drop-down menu is a way to fix whatever happened or fix whatever you want. That usually works, right? So like I said here, to add a trend line, I frequently click the data and then right-click to format trend line. Just play around with that. Sometimes Excel will confuse 7.96 and try to convert it into a date. If that happens, you can right-click and format the cells, and like I could change this to a date. Like watch what happens when I do this. It'll convert it to some nonsense. Right. So if that happens, just anytime you're troubleshooting in Excel, right click what you want to change, and then that'll hopefully have an option for you to fix it. But yeah, that's it. If you have questions about Excel, come see your lab instructors and we should be able to help you out, or use this video as a resource whenever you have sort of questions or it's been a while since you've used Excel. So thanks for watching.